when you say this worked for you, you're saying this movie made you horny.
It didn't not.
Okay. Oh, you guys can't
In 2017, Universal
theme song,
Studios
but it's
announced the
going on
birth of
right
a new
now.
shared universe of
I can
monster
hear it.
movies, bringing their classic
horror
horror
icons into the contemporary franchise film landscape.
But after the
critical
critical
and
commercial failure of its first installment,
the project was indefinitely abandoned.
Now
in 2025,
the powers that be have called upon
the powers that be
devotee and one snarky film critic to unearth the concept.
I'm Dylan Roth.
And I'm Dalton DeShane.
Are you afraid of the dark universe? Hello, and welcome back to Are You Afraid of the Dark Universe, the podcast where we attempt to resurrect Universal's failed cinematic universe of monster movies one pitch at a time. I was not reading that off of anything, Dylan. Suck it.
All right, I've been owned. Also, you read it like a 1930s newsreel. Like, that was incredibly confident and very emphatic.
I am your pratfalling mobster host, Dalton DeShane.
And I am your nutty professor host, Dylan Roth.
And together I already said that. I forget what we do after the introductions.
You see, it's so easy,
we
isn't
have been plumbing
so
the depths
easy.
of Universal's catalog.
One pitch at a time.
Well, I already said one pitch at a
well,
time.
fuck off. I don't know.
Okay.
You're going to brag about being off book. I'm going to put you to the test.
Yes.
Guys, please stop fighting.
We will get right to our guest because we have our guest in studio today, a very rare in-person appearance. Our guest today is a video game writer known for her work on the global smash hit sensation mobile game Lily's Garden, and also an incredible and hilarious poster and mother to Miga. Please welcome to the Dark Universe, Stella Sacco. Welcome to the Dark Universe, Stella.
Dalton, I cannot express to you how excited I am to be here today on a podcast I absolutely listened to before you invited me to talk about it.
And we are going to be testing you on the lore. Really deep cut stuff. We're going to test you on the guest episodes, which no one has listened to. I'm just kidding. You're on a guest episode. People listen.
Why is it that every time we have a guest to do a guest episode, one of us, usually me, you slipped up this time, points out, not everybody listens to the guest
So here's
episodes.
the thing.
I don't even think that's true anymore,
No,
by
it's
the
not.
way.
I
look
want
at
to
the
reassure
stats.
you, Stella. We had, I think earlier people would skip the guest episodes because they thought they weren't canon.
Sure.
But now we have started integrating the guest episodes into the larger canon. Dylan just wrote and pitched an entire movie with a lot of guest characters roped into it. So people better be listening to this, or because we're going to put the whatever invisible woman you pitch, next pitch, I'll write her into The Exorcist.
Okay.
And so you better listen to this one. How's the hot honey tea?
Oh, I haven't had to take a sip yet because I feel it's pretty hot. Yeah, I'm coming off of being quite sick. Feeling better now. Very confident that I'm not contagious.
I hope
also,
so.
Stella, I know you're coming off of having been on the injured list for a while.
Oh, yes. I had whatever horrible flu is going around right now, and let me tell you, not pleasant.
Yeah.
Not pleasant at all.
Very glad you're doing better.
Thank you.
And of course, we're all looking forward to next winter where there will not be any vaccines for those.
Yeah.
And
Tough it
we'll
out.
be fine.
Tough
Yeah.
it out, bitch.
It's gonna be
Walk
great.
it off. Walk it off.
Yeah.
What you're doing is you're building a better immune system for next year. You were smart by getting it really bad this year.
Yeah, I'm sure this is going to mean that my son is a super baby, is what's going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's just going to be more immune to everything.
The babies
he's
born
gonna get...
in the RFK era are going to be jacked up on vitamin A and will grow up looking like the Incredible Hulk for sure.
And I'm sure he'll tell me all about it while I am working on a farm up north where they don't let me have depression meds.
Yes.
And I work my way through my depression while providing free labor for the state.
You'll be in the ally camp where they do allow you to work still, and it's a slightly nicer camp than everyone else is in. Yeah.
I think I'll probably be in the other camp.
Yeah.
Not to put too fine a point on it.
Dylan, here feeling bad about yourself, you get the ally camp.
Yeah,
you get the privilege of
that's of course.
Anyway, Stella, welcome to the Dark Universe. We must ask, do you have any history with the Universal monsters, or what is your history with horror in general? Do you consider yourself a horror person?
Sure. So when I was a kid, there was a selection of Universal horror movies available at my local video rental store, which I believe was called Video Shed. And I
had a video barn.
Nice. We both got our videos from sort of shanties.
Mhm.
Very exciting.
Rustic videos.
Yeah. And admittedly, as a kid, I was way more into kaiju. I was way into like Godzilla, because while those could be scary in like a particular way, especially like the further back you go, like as a kid, I got scared by scary stuff, which is sort of like in the word. But you know, what I've been doing lately is I've been trying to go back and just watch old, especially like horror or fantasy or sci-fi movies, because I've developed like a real love for people putting something that can't be seen in real life onto film. You know, with Godzilla and you know, all of those types of movies, that was all about creating these incredible miniature sets, creating these suits that you had to be able to move and wrestle and stuff with. And to, you know, just doing these really incredible, you know, mats and composites and stuff like that. And so I have been trying to go back and watch old horror movies to see, well, how did they do that? You know, like what methods were used to film. This was something I picked up over COVID, essentially, like looking at, watching videos, analyzing old like VFX, you know, practical stuff, as opposed to CGI, where it's like, well, if you want something, you can just make it in CGI now, which is, I mean, it's true, but it's also, there's a reality to it that's missing. That even among like old cheesy horror films, you can you still feel there's a degree of like verisimilitude with the world we know as compared to CGI, which now is just often kind of like a muddy mess, you know? Which is actually one of the reasons why I was interested in today's movie.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, the Invisible Man films are sort of the perfect example of that, because like the special effects are so like pioneering for their time. Like that original Invisible Man we've talked about before, like the moment when he peels the bandages off, and it's not just he's invisible, but you can see through to the bandages,
back of the bandages,
on the other side.
That blew my mind when I saw it.
So cool.
It's not because it's impossible. It's just because going back into the past, it's like, oh, they figured that out.
Yeah.
You
well,
know?
and there's also like, I think like this movie we're talking about today, we're going to be talking about The Invisible Woman, which is an official Universal Invisible franchise entry from 1940.
The third film out of 4 of what's considered the official Universal Monsters.
And this will be our third Invisible.
That's true.
So perfect.
Yeah.
A fine entry into the Invisible Man. And
and you know what? In
the Man, yes.
In the same order, as a matter of fact, it goes Invisible Man, Invisible Man's Revenge, Invisible Woman, and the Invisible Agent.
Is it Revenge or is it Returns?
Revenge.
I think it's Revenge.
Revenge?
And yours is Revenge as well. So
All
we are
right, we're
actually,
following.
we don't usually follow the
No,
classic.
it is The Invisible Man Returns.
Oh, okay. Well, fuck
sorry
it.
to fact check. But like in this one, like I think to your point, like the fact that things are physical also lends like an eeriness to it. Like there's the part in this is very much a comedy. This is not a horror film.
which I didn't know when I started watching it.
And we'll talk about the selection process in a second. But the part where she comes out in her like, and she's like modeling and her head is missing, it's kind of an eerie visual. Like it's not scary, but like it is a little off-putting in a way that I think if they just like CGI'd, or what they wouldn't even, nowadays, they wouldn't even CGI out her head. They would CGI in a body.
Yes.
And like, it would just not have the effect. But in this, like, it's a little weird. Like it, in a way that's, I think, entirely because they actually did it, you know, in camera somehow, you know?
And frankly, I think like when you look at these older movies, that there's actually kind of value in having something look a little janky.
Yes,
because
for sure.
I think it sort of fits with like the cultural idea of the time of like, say, what a ghost did, what a ghost was. What a
ghost
like
did, what a ghost was.
Like it's that same type of like wobbly object interaction and like you just don't get that nowadays.
It's the same thing of like, I think 80s horror, so much of the practical effects don't look real, but the fact that they're tangible makes it gnarlier. Like watching like something like Society, which is like one of the gnarliest third acts, none of that looks like real flesh, but the fact that it's just like wet, slick rubber, like that's almost grosser in a way, you know? That's like
totally. Like I often say like I don't like when something looks CG, but I love when it looks like a puppet.
Yes, for sure.
Because it means it was in the scene.
Mm-hmm.
And it means that the reactions you're getting, it means that sort of like eye and like face reactions you're getting to it, that those are real.
Yeah.
You know?
And what's more, like, this is not to devalue the work of visual effects artists.
Sure.
But
who are, by the way, often under extreme time crunch.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And when it's done well, like I would say like the Dune films.
Yes. Oh, and it is hard work.
Yeah.
It is the kind of thing, like, I always try to, like, I have to yell at my dad about this every now and then when he's talking, because kind of blanket statements about CGI is bad.
Sure.
It's like, no, that's like if you had to build a set, but then also build the physics for all the objects in the set. It is hard.
Yeah.
However, there's never really a question of how did you do that?
Right.
You know how they did that. They spent a lot of time at a keyboard working it out.
Mm-hmm.
But like there is a different kind of wow about being able to bring something to life within physical space that should not be.
Yep.
And I think it's possible to achieve that wow with CGI. And the thing is, it's not the fault of the artists or even the process. It is the fault of studios cheaping out on things and like rushing things, right? Like I said, like Dune, I think is a jaw-dropping series of films, you know, and like everything there, I genuinely don't know what was done on a set and what was done on a green screen because everything feels so tangible.
Mm-hmm.
And I think like examples like that, when you can't tell what's real or not, that's possible to achieve with CGI, and that often hits. But a lot of times, especially in horror movies, where they're often not putting the budget in, right? Like to make those things look real, they're doing it to save money because horror is supposed to be a low budget, high yield genre, right?
Yeah, but
the
that's
lower
where
they keep the special effects budget, the higher they get.
But that's where we'll go
see
nuts about things like CGI blood splatters. I mean, like that's the cheapest thing.
Yes. Yeah.
We want squibs.
We want
squibs.
Squibs can't be that expensive, right?
But those great. But like, I think it definitely came into play in the original Invisible Man, and I think a little bit here. It seems like there was more frequently just rotoscoping.
Yes.
on this particular job.
Yeah.
But the most effective effects. I hate that. The most impactful effects. Are ones where it's done in a different way each time, so you can never fully work out the trick, right? It's why Skinny Steve in the first Avenger is still one of the best visual effects of its time, is because it's usually not the same trick. They have like 6 different ways that they're making Chris Evans look small or make that other guy look big.
And now it would just be
CGI.
It'd just be CGI.
That's
We're
boring.
putting him on a teeny weeny body.
So Stella, let's talk about how did you pick the Invisible Woman? What was your had you seen the other Invisible Man movies at all?
Okay, so I have seen the original Invisible Man, and then I saw Lee Whannell.
Whannell. That's how we say it in Michigan.
Whannell. So I saw the Lee Whannell one, which I thought was a great flick.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've talked about loving it. Yeah.
I love when an updated movie or like, you know, a Lego sequel or whatever doesn't just rely on we're just making the same movie again or we are just putting younger, hotter people in it. Like, I think that what made that one so successful is like tapping into this notion of like constant electronic surveillance, the terror of living with an abusive person, and then the ghost of that person when they're gone.
Yeah.
Like that was like thematically and like especially visually, the way that shots were framed in that movie where you never know, is something going to move?
Yeah.
Is there someone else in the room with her? Why is the shot framed like this? Like that, that like so many of the shots in that movie just made me so happy because they made me anxious.
Yes.
It was like, oh shit. You know, like, is he right? Is he right there? You know,
we've talked about the fact that that is such a perfect modern Invisible Man horror movie is why I had to go comedy with it when we pitched it, because like I really don't know how, at least right now, you could improve upon like that take on it in a thriller sense.
I don't think you can, especially because if you look at the other Invisible Man movies that have been made with different names,
Hollow Man.
Hollow Man, exactly. And like, I don't think Hollow Man is like a bad movie. It's like a schlocky movie, certainly. But also like if you have a movie about a guy who's basically getting petty revenge with this like newfound power that he has. And I was like, okay, well, you have the petty lunatic and you have the abusive asshole. Where do you go with this? Like, how do you make this guy, like, do you try to make him sympathetic? Do you try to make him into a victim of sorts? And Invisible Woman, looking at that, I was like, I wonder what they'll do with that. And I tried not to look up too much about it beforehand.
So you just went based on the title, basically.
Exactly. Because Dalton, if I'm going to be watching a movie, I want there to be a woman in it.
Sure.
You know?
Well, you kind of get tricked in this one a little bit.
Yeah, true. It's
you don't see a lot of her.
Yeah, so I started watching, and I would like to read to you the very first note that I made.
Yes,
which is, oh no, this is a screwball comedy, isn't it?
Yes. Not a horror movie in the slightest.
No.
They went full, what if, like Abbott and Costello, but nobody with actual vaudeville writing experience was writing on it. Yeah.
And like, this was kind of a fascinating picture for me because I feel like if I had, say, seen it on Mystery Science Theater 3000 first, if I had seen people riffing over it, then I probably would have found it less watchable than I did just watching it at a decent resolution at my own home.
Yeah.
And like, I didn't want to turn it off, but I was also kind of relieved when it was like 70 minutes long.
Yes. Oh yeah. The blessing of some of these older films is like,
you feel every minute of those 70 though. Like sometimes it's like, sometimes 70 feels like, oh, that was by really fast. This is a movie where I occasionally check to see where the playhead was. Be like, are we in the third act yet?
This is a movie that pushes you toward your phone.
Yeah.
That can be a little hard to clock everything that's going on. Hopefully between us, if there are any gaps in the plot summary, we can all figure it out. I definitely have one big question about Act 1, but when we get into the summary, we'll talk about it. But did you find that it informed what you wanted to do with the pitch, or did you basically just pitch based on the title anyway?
Okay, so initially, and we can talk about the pitch later, but I had a very different pitch than the one I'm pitching to you today. Okay. And what this movie informed for me is I don't know that I'd want to watch a serious movie with this concept.
Yeah.
Like, my thought with pitching to you guys was like, I can come up with any number of very serious horror pitches involving this. However, would I want to watch that movie?
Yeah.
And like, I started thinking about The Invisible Man, and I was like, I don't know that I can pitch an invisible person, like, straight horror movie with like that I feel could stand up to that.
Yeah.
You know? And so with this, you know, I thought we'll do comedy for comedy, but I wanted that sort of like modern, a horror movie that's funny instead of a horror comedy.
Yes. Yeah.
So, you know, obviously this movie, well, not obviously if our, you know, listeners haven't actually watched the movie, but there's no horror in it. There's nothing. The whole thing is played for laughs.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is like horny.
Yes, it's like, a very horny movie.
Like horny in a way that I was not anticipating for 1940.
Yeah. Because the main character, the Invisible Woman, has to be naked for most of the film. And they play into that. There's like her putting on her stockings and like you see her legs and
Yeah.
the main character is like like is the rest of you shaped like that, you know, like
and there's actually they made this, I'll say they made this work for me occasionally. There's especially the stuff where they've gimmicked like a rug that she's lying on, and there is like something being like, that is some pretty good tasteful eroticism in that it's like, oh, you, the viewer, you are now imagining a naked woman pressing her body against this rug.
So when
you're
you
not
say
seeing
this,
anything.
When you say this worked for you, you're saying this movie made you horny.
It didn't not.
Okay.
I mean, I was mostly just like, this is like mildly entertaining, but conceptually,
so the bar to clear, Stella, is does your pitch make Dylan horny?
Doesn't have to. Doesn't have to do that. I don't have to be the target audience at all. Doesn't have to. But just like the idea of like a lot of times it's just sort of like funny. I don't know if vaudeville's quite right.
Yeah.
Right? Because talk about it's like.
It's very, if it's not vaudeville, it's very, very close.
Yeah.
A lot of these gags are very stage play.
Yes.
Sure.
I mean, the opening scene is a guy pratfalling down the stairs.
There's a lot of unnecessary pratfalls.
Yeah.
There's the part where, so comedy royalty Shemp Howard is in this, playing a minor mobster. And the first time we meet the mobsters, he's sticking up somebody at like a newspaper office and turns around and just trips over a trash can for essentially no reason other than to see Shemp Howard pratfall.
Right, because if you're going to hire Shemp Howard, he should fall on something.
And like you said, the opening like shot is the butler falls down the stairs. Why? Because that's comedy, baby.
Yeah.
You know,
this is the kind of comedy where they're like, we have 70 minutes, so we need 280 jokes.
Yeah.
Come back to me with 280 jokes. And
they don't have to be good.
They don't have to be good, but I'll
they
tell you what.
They don't even have to be in order.
No.
They don't even really have to be jokes. There are some things like when the mobsters show up in the car that has Just Married on the back.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, this is going to be the setup of a joke.
No, it's the payoff to a joke that's not in the movie.
Yeah. They show up and one of the mobsters is like, where'd you get this car? And he's like, I found it. The end. That's the joke.
No,
it's just that it had Just Married on it.
I will say, though, of those 280 jokes or whatever, there were like 30 that were good.
Sure. Yeah,
just because, like, law of averages.
Yeah.
Right?
I really like when they're going fishing and the butler says F-I-S, fish. Stupid, but it works for me.
One of my favorite jokes is also fish related. When the rich guy is unconscious and his butler, whose main job is maintaining the gags around the house, spills. He wakes him up by pouring a full fishbowl on his head, and the goldfish falls out too. And the guy is like, "Did you have to throw the fish too, sir? It's Friday." That's a good bit.
That's good. I don't even think I pieced that together until now. That's good.
That's really good because it happens so fast.
Yeah.
Right. So there are a couple that's good. We're getting ahead of ourselves here,
yes.
as we often do here in the Dark Universe. But
shall we talk about our plot?
Let's talk about the
plot. First of all, from jump, from the opening credits, you know this is going to be a Universal classic because the gowns are by Vera West. Love seeing a gowns by Vera West credit. She's our girl. All the Universal classics have gowns by Vera West.
And you know what? They look great.
Yes, they always do.
The dresses in this movie look quite good.
I mean, if it's going to be an Invisible Woman movie, you got to have, when she is clothed, it's got to
to the nines.
Yes.
And this is, you get an actual fashion show in the film.
Yeah.
They're not, these gowns are not background players.
No.
They are featured extras.
Yes.
You know, in a way, I think like the dresses are like their own character.
Yeah. They're kind of like the fifth Invisible Woman.
Yeah. They're kind of like New York City.
Yes.
You know, like it's really a kind of a character of its own.
Without the gowns, the whole movie falls apart. And that's Vera. So let's talk about the cast since we're just at the credits, because the movie is, you know, middling, maybe.
Sure,
we could agree.
I
would say that.
Squarely and generously 2.5 stars on Letterboxd.
Well, actually, to go back a little bit, one thing I was going to say is like, even though the gags don't always work, this movie really made me appreciate that invisible hijinks almost always work. Like,
so funny.
The invisible stuff, I don't know why. Even like Abbott and Costello Meet the Invisible Man is one of my favorite of the Abbott and Costello ones because invisible gags just hit. I don't know what it is, but they just, even here where like, even when the dialogue jokes don't always hit, I'm always having fun with the invisible shenanigans. The faster we can get her invisible, the better.
Which is unfortunate because it takes a while.
It takes a while. We don't even meet her for a while. There is no woman in this for the first like 15 or 20 minutes.
Because the movie's not really about her or anything.
Yeah, that's fair to say. It is a strung together bit of gags.
Yeah.
But the cast in this is crazy because, first of all, playing the mad scientist of it all is John Barrymore.
Yeah.
Drew Barrymore's grandfather.
Yeah.
Just 2 years before his death, unfortunately. According to Wikipedia, he had trouble memorizing his lines. And so they would put his lines hidden behind parts of the set so he could look at them during his scenes. But apparently he was a delight to work with.
Well, that's how you can always tell a working actor is they're putting in 110% for projects that are deeply below them.
Yes. The Wikipedia says that like everyone knew this was not great art that they were making, but they were having fun. That like it seemed like it was a fun movie to make, and I believe that. Like everyone's just they're all, only 50% is required of them. But like you said, John's putting in 110%. Everyone's doing the work for not much payoff, but we appreciate them for that. We also have Shemp Howard, as we mentioned, an original Three Stooge in his post-Stooge career. In between his two stints with the Three Stooges,
Iggy Pop had gone solo at that point.
Yeah.
You know,
he was doing that. He was doing those episodes of DS9 that he did.
Shemp,
Iggy Pop.
Oh, okay.
Stella's got me.
Yeah.
Stupid.
I never get the Star Trek jokes. Iggy Pop was on Star Trek?
Yeah, he did one. He did one episode.
When did Shemp die? Did Shemp ever do a Star Trek? He could have been in the original series.
No Stooge ever did a Star Trek, to my recollection.
We never had the Stooge Trek crossover.
No, they were all too old.
Damn.
However, I did used to watch the Three Stooges directly into Star Trek Remastered on CBS on Sunday mornings with my dad.
Hell yeah.
There you go.
There's your crossover.
I used to watch the Three Stooges with my dad as well.
It's a real watching with your dad program.
Yeah.
The only time I've actually seen the Three Stooges was when they were in a Scooby-Doo episode.
Oh, okay.
I've never seen the Stooges except maybe like a brief clip in the context of something else, but I do know the name Shemp Howard.
Yes, and those were just animated Stooges, correct?
They were.
So they didn't even have to be doing the shtick. They were just in the booth going like, making the noises and stuff.
I think on Scooby-Doo it was Larry, Moe, and Curly Joe.
Yeah, Curly Joe is a late Stooge.
Who's Curly Joe?
Exactly.
His name is Joe, but he was the replacement for Curly.
Post Shemp returning or pre Shemp returning?
I think between Shemp's between Shemp's two tenures was Curly Joe.
So it went from Shemp to Curly Joe back to Shemp. Is this correct? Do we have the Stooge timeline?
I'm not an expert.
Margaret, can we get the Stooge
Stooge file, please?
Yeah. Can our producer fact check this for us? What we should all do is when we're done here, we're going to take a little road trip to Pennsylvania where they do have the Stoogeum.
Okay.
I've never seen it in person, but they have at gas stations and rest stops. They have the little, pamphlet for the official Stoogeum. I would love to go.
Okay.
To the Stoogeum.
Let's take the show on the road.
Finally, in the cast, we have Margaret Hamilton, a.k.a. the Wicked Witch of the West, 1 year after she was the Wicked Witch.
Yeah, I was shocked to see her.
Her name's not even on the poster.
Nope.
It's crazy. They have like 8 names on the poster, and Margaret Hamilton is not one of them. I don't know how she's not the biggest star in Hollywood at this point.
Yeah.
But she's got a pretty thankless role here as the abused servant of the scientist.
The Nutty Professor.
Who's the Nutty Professor is a likable, silly guy, but he is so mean to Margaret Hamilton.
Yes.
He tells her to get back in the kitchen. And
abusive to the staff.
Yes.
Probably par for the course for powerful, wacky scientists of the 1940s.
I would say, yeah, in a lot of old movies, endearingly abusive is an archetype that's very common.
Right. And the staff is usually kind of like rolling your eyes with a little bit of aw you.
Yeah.
Right. Now she doesn't give that much aw you because she is the Wicked Witch of the West.
Sure.
Who we love. And
that was a little Trumpian.
She's the Wicked Witch. She's one of the most famous witches.
Who we love.
We love her.
We love the Wicked Witch.
We never put any water near her.
Excellent witch, just tremendous. You're hearing it more and more. That's not a very good Trump.
No, it's better than ours.
I'm so sorry, guys.
Is this it? Did we manage to last? I think this is episode 61, and this is the first time any of us actually did a Trump impression.
And you can tell.
Not
we
practiced.
Haven't perfected
not
it.
We
rehearsed.
did not have this ready to go.
Yes.
It's almost as if we just kind of hate hearing his voice so much that we don't want to do it, except for if it's funny, we have to. We do live by Roger Rabbit rules here.
James Austin Johnson, if you do want to come on the show,
oh my God, I would
at
love
any
to have
point.
James Austin Johnson.
What if we had James Austin Johnson on pitching in character as Trump?
Oh, that's too much.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know.
I think I just got sick to my tummy.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, let's
no more Trump talk.
Let's retreat into our fantastical movie studio world, please.
I want to say something here, which is something I also wrote down in my notes, which is you used to be able to have a name like Kitty Carol.
Yes.
You used to just be able to have that name. People would give that name to you.
Yeah.
You could say, my name's Kitty Carol.
Alliterative names were huge. Yeah.
I
get it. It's fun. It's wacky.
Yeah. And they get to do a lot of here, kitty, kitty gags.
That joke I thought was really funny, actually.
It's not bad.
The old guy crawling on the floor like, Kitty, Kitty, where are you?
That was very good. The gag, the repeated gag that does not work is how often they say not see. Like, there's a lady here for you to not see, or I can't wait to not see her. Like, just doing the opposite.
You get
thing.
one of those.
They do it like 20 times. It's really, and sometimes like really close together.
When we were going through our cast, did we mention who plays Kitty Carol, the actual Invisible Woman?
I don't actually know who she is. Should I? Who is
I
Virginia
feel like,
Bruce?
Yeah, I feel like we should acknowledge the star of the film.
Yes, we should acknowledge Virginia Bruce from Fargo, North Dakota. I'm just kind of scanning through the Wikipedia right now.
I can confirm that Dalton is simply scrolling the Wikipedia. Oh, they're pulling up filmography.
Yes, we love very,
right.
very stacked filmography, of course. This same year, she was in The Man Who Talked Too Much, Stronger Than Desire, There's That Woman Again.
And she's visible now.
Yeah. They almost call this movie There Isn't That Woman Again. But someone had some good sense. She was in Butch Minds the Baby.
Say, Butch.
Was she the Butch? We'll never know. Careful, Soft Shoulder, Action in Arabia. Lots of great names.
They used to just make movies, didn't they?
They really made so many
None
movies.
of these are versus anybody.
No. Woman Against Woman. Is that a porno? Let's see.
Boy, I sure hope so. Gosh.
So Kitty Carol, she is a model at a fancy department store, which means that she, along with about a dozen other women, their job is to get into the fancy dresses, walk through a private shopping suite in front of usually no more than 2 rich people at a time so that they can look at them.
I didn't know this was a job until this movie.
I
probably
didn't
still
either,
is.
but I also learned about something completely new to me from this movie, and this is totally serious. You know, at the beginning when they're yelling at the guy for constantly dating women and how it's costing him money, I was like, how could it possibly be costing him so much money? And then I looked at the headline of that paper.
Yeah,
and
I did want to talk about this.
Yes, it said, lady, whatever her name is, gets heart balm. And I was like, okay, what does that mean? Obviously, it's the opposite of heartbreak.
Sure.
You know? Okay, so I looked it up. Until like the 60s or later in some places, you used to be able to sue someone if they broke up with you.
So this was a big question for me. I'm
I
so
had
glad
no
that's it.
fucking idea. That's crazy.
Yes,
Because
and it happened a lot.
It opens with, so we don't meet the Invisible Woman for a while. It opens with, what's his name? Is his name Dick? Dick Russell.
We're half an hour into the show and we've not even gotten to the part where she turns in invisible.
No, Dick Russell is like a rich playboy. And the first thing we learn of him is that we see this newspaper headline that a showgirl is suing him for $100,000. Now I see that and I go, oh no, what has this man done? Because by modern standards, if you are a rich person and not exactly a sex worker, but a showgirl of the time is suing you for $100,000. Oh, that guy did something really bad. So I'm glad to hear that it's a little bit less serious than that.
Yeah. So it's I don't know how into like legal theory you guys are, but it's sort of
I would say none.
Yeah, not at all.
Okay, so there's this legal concept called loss of consortium.
Okay.
Which is essentially like, I thought we were building this together. I thought we would be operating financially together, etc. And now that we're broken up, or now that this relationship no longer exists, I have lost the access to that, which means I am owed compensation.
Because he's a rich guy.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
It's sort of like a prenup, but you didn't have to sign anything. Which you can see why they did not like that very much.
Yeah.
And why they got rid of it eventually in most areas. Like there are some states where that heart balm law is actually still in effect, but nobody uses it because nobody wants to go into court and say it. Because it sounds kind of insane.
Yeah.
Well,
this does lead then directly into, I think, my favorite gag in the movie, which really got my hopes up for the rest of it, where they go over to the piano and there are framed photos of like 40 women.
Like Max Bialystock and the producers. Like you have them all in his desk.
It feels like a Abraham Zucker bit. Like just an excellent sight gag.
That was pretty much the point where I stopped making notes because I hoped in my heart of hearts that all the gags would be that good.
Yes, yeah.
Because like the piano having like 40 framed pictures of women on it is so goddamn funny.
It's so good. That is a joke that you could put in a movie now and would be like, would just slay.
The camera just panning over to it,
Oh man.
Because the implication is not like, because there's one thing about being like, oh, he takes one out, throws it away. No, he's keeping all these. These are all still displayed. That is a much different message about who this guy is.
It reminds me, there's on Comedy Bang Bang, Paul F. Tompkins plays a character named Alimony Tony.
Of course he does.
His whole bit is just that he loves paying alimony. But he never marries just for the alimony. He marries for love. He doesn't divorce them just for the alimony. It just doesn't work out. But now he has like 80 ex-wives that he loves paying alimony to, but he loves them all. There's no bad blood. It just doesn't work out.
That's this guy.
And that's this guy.
Because he doesn't even seem like he's all that broken up about. He's warned Dick that he's running out of money. He's broke. And so he's like, okay, well, I better stop paying that mad scientist I've been paying so that when he someday invents something, I will get rich off of it.
Yeah.
He's not even like, I need that money back. Oh no, I'm in big trouble. He's like, can we just cancel that one? Can we cancel one check?
Cancel this check to the mad scientist.
And let's just pack up the stuff. We're going to move to a smaller house. No, we're not. Yes, we are. No, we're not. Yes, we are. And he has his butler / parent who takes care of him. A real Alfred Pennyworth type. Not at all.
But he's catty.
Yes.
Like he is a catty little bitch. Like I was kind of not anticipating that. Like I don't know if you guys saw Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, but the sort of like house servant guy to Jonathan in that book, Childermass, in the TV show, like very much like incredibly catty, rolling his eyes at everything, etc. Like just over it completely. And I was not anticipating that from like a servant character from 1940, but I got it.
Yeah, he ends up being sort of one of the sort of comedic fulcrums of the film, which I don't think that actor is that good at it.
No, I don't think so.
He's not a particularly funny actor, but a lot of the comedy rests on his shoulders.
The thing is that this is a whole Shakespearean archetype, right? Of the servant foil. Mm-hmm. That there are people who spend their whole lives perfecting this bit. This guy, not one of them.
No,
he's no Festi. Like truly.
So this rich guy's broke. He stops paying the mad scientist, who he doesn't even know what the scientist is working on. Little does he know, the scientist is about to crack the invisibility serum. No idea if this is canon with the other Invisible Man films. It didn't matter back then. Now you would have a whole forum being like, figuring out how these things are linked. But he's inventing an invisible serum. He puts an ad in the paper asking for someone to turn invisible.
That's a gag I like too, where he's going to the office, classified office, tell him to put an ad in there and say,
"We'll pay you
$3,000." Then he realizes the check has been canceled. He says, "No remittance."
Yes,
it's great.
So, how much was $3,000 in 1940? Because that sounds like a lot of money.
Probably like $60,000.
Kitty says that they make $1,650 a week. Working as the models, so 3,000 seems like a lot. Yeah, that definitely seems like a lot of money.
No wonder he got so many responses.
Yes, he gets a lot of responses, including one from Kitty, who we said is the model, whose boss is a total dick. She puts in for it. The professor doesn't realize she's a woman. Calls her in.
He's scandalized by the very notion that a woman would answer the ad.
Yes, and when he finds out, he goes, skirts and things. We get the best Margaret Hamilton read in like full Wicked Witch voice. Goes, skirts and things. And I loved it.
What do you mean women can read?
Yes, because it turns out part of it is getting naked to be turned invisible. But so she comes in. She turns invisible, immediately goes and gets revenge on her boss. Her boss basically gets like a Christmas Carol thing that happens to him, but with only one ghost. She just shows up and kind of kicks him in the pants a few times.
Yeah, I thought she was going to dangle him out the window, but she just kicked him in the pants.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, wow, we're really going for it.
Some tight pants, too. You could really see those cheeks clap.
You could.
Yeah, when she kicks him.
It's also very funny to essentially see him just like humping the window when he's supposed to be getting kicked.
Yeah.
Like obviously they had to do it like that, but it was still very funny. Yeah.
There's an important detail we've missed here is this is not permanent invisibility as in the case of other invisibility serums that we've addressed here on the show.
Because this movie is allergic to stakes.
Yeah, can't have them.
Anything that might, amp up any tension or anything.
Right.
Can't do it.
So what happens, you get the injection, then you go and you undergo some radiation, and then you get to be invisible for some period of hours, and then it wears off. But as we discover, if you drink, it doesn't stop.
Yes.
You can stay invisible as long as you stay drunk.
Yeah, it makes it last longer, too, because even when she's sobered up, she's still invisible for a little while. Like, alcohol sort of prolongs. And even to the point where when you've had the serum, it seems like if you drink alcohol, you just turn invisible.
Yeah, yes. We've created a version of the serum that is it is temporary, but also it's like a chronic condition, right, of invisibility, where you can have an invisibility blow up if you have too much to drink.
Yes.
And then you got to wait for it to pass.
Normally it's the opposite. When I get drunk, I become much more visible.
She does start, sort of stumbling around, and making more of a racket. But after she does some hijinks, we then introduce, of course, it's 1940, the gangster subplot. There is, of course, it's a comedy from this era. There's going to be a gangster subplot. That's where Shemp comes in. The one sort of redeeming thing here is the lonely mob boss, who's kind of funny. Like, basically, the gangsters are in it because their boss wants them to steal the machine of invisibility so that he can sneak back to his home country, which he has apparently been exiled from. And he misses it very badly. He cries, which leads to the funny Shemp line where he says, the last time he cried, we had to have the triple funeral, which is actually a pretty good one.
Yeah, sure.
And hijinks ensue. The gangsters are coming. They pretend to be scientists with Tommy guns. How much do we really want to get
No,
into the
all
rest
we
of
have to
this
say from that
plot?
point
Yeah.
is that Kitty uses her invisibility to defeat the mobsters.
By drinking like grain alcohol.
She drinks
Yes.
grain alcohol, becomes invisible.
But she says, they say, yeah, that'll melt your dental work.
Yeah.
which is
melts her dental work, beats the baddies, and then also when she and Dick, the millionaire or whatever, they fall in love in what is truly they love each other's souls because he couldn't even see her before.
Yes,
right?
yeah.
But he thought she looked so beautiful when she was wearing that lampshade on her head.
And just stockings.
Yeah. Hey, honestly, I've fallen in love with several women who are only wearing stockings. I get it.
Relatable. Very relatable. Totally with him on that. Yeah, they definitely have a little romance. There's the funny visual at the very end of him kissing the air.
Yeah, that was cute.
Kiss. Yeah. Like that. And then the stinger at the end is we flash way forward, I guess, and they have a baby.
Yeah. They have one of those 3-month-old newborns.
Yes.
And then they're talking about, oh, it's great. Yeah, they put all of this invisible nonsense behind us. And then the doctor is seeing to the baby, and then the baby starts slowly turning invisible because they're putting rubbing alcohol on the baby.
Like
you do. If
do.
you want to really dry out your baby, I guess.
Well, because their skin's too soft.
Yeah.
That was seen as
everybody's
a problem back
biggest complaint about babies. Their skin is too soft.
Toughen up, you little shit.
This is 1940. You want praise? You better wait until at least the late 70s, Buster.
Yes.
You got to go to war in 2 years.
Got to toughen you up. You need a leathery hide by then. Yeah.
So setting up the Invisible Baby movie that never was, or I guess there's the Jack Attack short based on The Incredibles. There's the sequel you were all waiting for.
Isn't the invisible agent a kid?
Is it?
Is he? Or is he this baby all grown up? Let's see.
We are supposed to be the experts on this show, Dalton.
Yeah, I thought you guys were the Dark Universe experts.
We're really fucking up here. We're experts on a completely made-up version of the Dark Universe that we invented.
The thing is, I feel like I watched The Invisible Agent. Yes, I did watch The Invisible Agent as research for The Invisible Man's Revenge, and I don't remember anything about this.
Okay, because I swear I saw... I think it was an episode of Actually recently where you had to figure out which horror movies were Universal movies and which weren't. And I swear there was one with like an invisible kid, and that was the whole plot. So I assumed that it was Invisible Agent, but I guess not.
I don't think so. I don't remember there being an invisible baby, but Peter Lorre was in that one. I forgot to shout out earlier when we were talking about John Barrymore. We do have to give him credit because he is also the original Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde from the Paramount 1920s silent version,
movie, yeah.
which
Really?
is not a Universal movie, but has sort of been wrapped in with the Universal monsters, I think just because it's public domain. Literary.
They
Black and white literary public domain.
Yeah.
Recognizable. Well, sort of recognizable monster.
That's the thing about that's kind of interesting about The Mummy 2017 with Tom Cruise is that Dr. Jekyll is in it, who very notably not a Universal monster.
Well,
but
but
public domain.
They need a Hulk.
They need a Hulk, yeah. And they do that in that movie.
We made use of him.
Yeah.
I would say, all in all, probably not my favorite Invisible Person movie.
No.
You and I talked about this when I arrived earlier, but like I didn't hate it.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't a movie where I was like, Jesus Christ, I got to get out of here. But like I said, I was also grateful that it was 70 minutes long.
Yes.
And there were maybe 20% of the jokes were actually kind of killers.
Yeah.
So
there's not a great hit rate, but there are hits, and at 70
we're
minutes.
going shotgun style here.
Yeah. But yeah, it's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine.
As slight a film as you could ask for.
I would say it's better than The Mad Ghoul if we're comparing it to other Universal films of the era.
I guess I was more entertained, than the Mad Ghoul.
I think that remains maybe the worst of the Universal classics we've watched.
Pretty rough one. I think there was one that I really hated that you didn't. But I can't recall right now. So let's not waste airtime talking about it. Let's throw to a break, and when we come back, we will hear Stella Sacco tell us all about her version of The Invisible Woman.
Be right back.
In 2006, DC Comics attempted a publishing stunt like nothing comics had ever seen before.
1 year-long continuous story.
For 52 weekly issues.
By a writer's room of the hottest comic writers in the industry.
What they created was the most important comic book series of the 21st century. I'm Gita Jackson.
And I'm professional comic book expert Alex Jaffe.
And we're the hosts of 52 Pickup, a deep dive into 52, the comic book that took the conventions of television writing to comics and defined the way we think about superhero universes today.
We'll show you just how big the DC universe can be when you get Batman out of the way.
And the chain of dominoes that led to Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson playing Black Adam in a major Hollywood movie.
Find 52 Pickup wherever you find your podcasts, and we'll go issue by issue into this starting point to our comic book obsessions and figure out why our brains are broken this way.
It's the greatest podcast you've never heard of.
Are you ready?
Welcome back to Are You Afraid of the Dark Universe? We are here with Stella Sacco, about to pitch her updated version of The Invisible Woman, 1940, 2025 now. Stella, do you want to tell us a little bit about your process? Because I know, like you said earlier, you had a couple drafts you went through here.
Yeah. So,
and we're honored that you put enough thought into this to give it multiple drafts. That is more than we expect from any guest.
Hey, well, you know, I'm a writer and narrative designer by trade.
Yes.
So this is something that I have to do frequently, is like pitch scenes and stories, characters, concepts to people.
We made you do your job, and without paying you.
Yeah. Well, I've been unemployed for a while now, so this is not new to me. Okay, so I watched it and I thought, I think that the best thing that I could do with it off the top of my head was, and I almost made a poster for this with The Invisible Woman tagline, "It's the opposite of the substance." Where you have a woman who is sick of being looked at. A beautiful woman who is tired of being ogled, who is tired of being seen only for her appearance, et cetera, et cetera. Something bad happens. She goes invisible, and she uses that newfound state for the same type of like petty revenge and, you know, disappearance that you would kind of expect from this pitch, right?
Yeah.
And now there isn't anything wrong with that. I think you could probably make a pretty good movie with that concept.
And it does have to do with the original, because the original also has no substance. And so
took me a second. But like it's you know, like I think that like the sort of like opting in part of it would fit both films there, where you like, she's doing this because she wants to, because she hates whatever's going on in her life, you know, whatever. And like, I had a whole pitch about this. And then last night I watched the movie again, and I was stoned out of my gourd. And I thought, no, because we have plenty of, like, we have movies like this, the same sort of like theme. And as I said before, I think you could make a good movie out of it. I don't know that I'd want to watch it. So I thought, I'm going to honor the original and make this a horror comedy. Now, again, I don't want it to be a horror comedy. I want it to be a horror movie that's just kind of funny.
That's also funny.
Right. Like that same type of like pitch black humor that you see. And like, I don't know if you guys have seen Companion yet.
Not yet.
Which
I just watched it the other night.
Good flick, I thought.
Next week I'll probably see it.
And you know, Your Next was a huge inspiration for this one for me. And really like the themes that I wanted to go into with this is like the difference between being watched, being viewed, and being seen.
I like that.
And so my pitch is,
Okay.
I want Emma Seligman to direct, who did Shiva Baby.
Yes.
And Bottoms.
Yeah. Love her.
Already, like, Shiva Baby was already an incredible thriller.
Right. Like,
I considered Emma Seligman, right? Yeah, for an earlier Dark Universe movie, and I think I went with someone else. But yeah, because Shiva Baby is basically a horror movie.
That is precisely what I was going to say. Yeah. Like it is like it is basically uncut gems for bisexuals.
Yes.
You know, like
for Jewish bisexuals.
Yeah. Which is funny because like Rachel Sennett keeps getting cast as like Jewish and gay, which she is neither.
Yeah.
But the great thing is she's super hot, which is why I have her starring in my film.
That's great. She's available. We've never cast Rachel Sennett.
Almost cast her in the Old Dark House. Actually, she was going to. I was originally going to gender swap Pendrell. And have
she'd have been great.
And have it be Rachel Sennett, but it ended up thematically not working.
Sorry.
But so yeah, Rachel Sennett is available.
Yeah. So, and I didn't go back and check every single one of your casts because
no one
don't
does.
worry about it. You have done enough homework for the show.
That's our job. That's our job to bring it up. Yeah.
But I did recast someone else because I wondered, have you guys used Vanessa Kirby yet?
No,
I don't think we have.
Oh
no.
Man. Okay. Interesting.
She's free.
I'm staying with what I have on paper here. But
so far, this is an all-wife cast, and I love that. Yeah, we love all-wife casts here.
The Invisible Wife.
The Invisible Wife.
That's what I have. So again, like the themes here are women are constantly being watched.
Yeah,
women are constantly being ogled.
Mm-hmm.
Just like almost like constantly surveilled against our will. So what I wanted to do was take a character who has essentially been watched for her whole life so far.
Yeah.
So I have Rachel Sennett as a former child star, sort of a Miley Cyrus, Hannah Montana type of thing where she was incredibly popular with kids.
Yeah.
And you had people creeping on her the entire time until she turned 18. Yeah. And now that she's
there's a website with the countdown clock or whatever.
That's literally a point that I mentioned in it. Yeah. Like thinking about the whole like Emma Watson, Mary Kate, and Ashley type of thing, you know? And, now that she's an adult, she's still a very, very popular entertainer. She's on shows, she's in movies, she has music, and she fucking hates it.
Yeah.
Because she got pushed into stardom by her parents when she was a kid. And they relied on her for their money. And so she's every second that she's out of the house, sometimes even while she's in the house, you have people taking paparazzi photos, you have people walking up to her, you have this whole crowd of people constantly who are only interested in her because she's famous and hot.
Yeah.
And because they have this vision of her from when she was a kid on TV, right? And so she never gets to be herself ever.
Yeah.
All of these people are, constantly watching. And so she has to put on a character. She has to be something for all these different people that she doesn't particularly want to, but she also can't stop because this is just what her life is. But what she wants more than anything is to be able to just blend into the background.
She doesn't do, or maybe she does, I don't know. But like I feel like a lot of those like child stars, they do is my mic working? Oh yeah, that's my mic. Sorry, I was looking at the wrong channel.
That's
you
me.
Just haven't talked. Okay,
You're
listening.
I'm just shutting the fuck up for a change, and they're going to complain about it.
No.
Dylan is an active listener, and you are being so rude.
You're right.
Thank you, Stella.
I can see him nodding at me, going, "Yeah, sure."
But I feel like there's like this. This thing we see with some of these like women child stars where then they do like the sexy phase, right? They like lean into it, and I could see it being either way, where she just like doesn't have that, or she's sort of forced into that but feels gross about it, and it's like I don't really.
I think that she is at this point probably like half a decade past that point.
Yeah.
But her star hasn't like fallen at all.
Sure.
Like she's still very, very, very popular. and everywhere.
Yeah.
As much as we as viewers would not be able to escape her, she can't escape anything herself either. And so I started thinking about what does someone like that want? And the answer is not to be watched, not to be viewed, but to be seen.
Yeah.
To be seen as an individual person.
Sure.
So I thought, what do rich and famous people do? They go to parties all the time. They are constantly at people's mansions, at galas, events, etc. And so Sybil is her name, Sybil Evans, which is invisible just with the
I like that. Invisible.
Yeah.
No, that's very clever. Love that.
She ends up at a big party by Margot Gilder, who is the CEO of a biotech startup named Gilderon. And she is played by Lisa Gilroy.
Yes.
So
love Lisa Gilroy.
Love Lisa, and I have been dying for her to have a star moment.
And because she acts a little bit. She was in Jury Duty.
Refresh my memory about Lisa Gilroy.
She's a improv comedian.
Okay.
We have a lot of fans that watch the Dropout shows. She's constantly on Dropout stuff. She's on Comedy Bang Bang. She's in the sketch comedy.
I'm embarrassing myself right now because these are somebody I should absolutely know about.
Should you? Are you a Dropout person?
I'm in and out.
Okay.
You could say I drop in.
Yes. You drop in to drop
out.
I enjoy everything that I've watched.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
If you've seen the Very Important People episode that was Vic's ex-step grandmother, that was Lisa. And if you've seen Jury Duty, she was the influencer person on trial.
She's really funny. She's one of the funniest people alive.
Okay. As I'm sure I know we have a lot of listeners who are big Dropout fans. So let's not waste any more time explaining who this person is who I should already know who it is.
So
love the idea of her as a tech startup person.
Yes.
She would kill that.
So what I immediately had in my head was Elizabeth Holmes, Theranos.
Sure.
I want her to essentially be running a gigantic scam, promising some sort of, biotech thing that is just, it's not possible. It's never going to work. But investors, they need to keep getting information. However, her runway on that is rapidly running out.
Yeah.
Where she has to show that the shit that she's doing actually works or bad things are going to happen. Okay.
And unlike a lot of men in tech who just get to continue to fail upward eternally, even after being exposed, the women, not to say that the women in tech are better necessarily, but when they get exposed, they immediately crumble,
their lives are functionally over.
They are torn down. Yeah. Yes. Instead of allowed to just continue fucking up eternally. Yeah.
So Sybil goes to this big party where Margot is basically there talking up this new thing they're pitching, which is a way to make soldiers invisible. Perfect stealth, right? If you can't be seen, it's much harder to track you. Only they haven't figured out how to make it work yet. It's just one of those Silicon Valley things where it was never going to work.
But I bet they're getting a lot of government money.
They sure are. And, obviously venture capitalists and stuff like that. And we have one of my very favorite actresses, which is Caitlin Dever.
Cool.
Wonderful. So basically I'm pulling from a lot of independent comedy people generally, whereas I saw Caitlin Dever in Booksmart.
Yeah.
And she was so good.
She was really good in that.
And so
she was really good. What's it, the no dialogue alien movie that came out last year?
Oh yeah, No One Will Save You, or something along those lines.
She has no lines. She's great in that. She's really good.
Yeah. And also vitally, I saw her as gay in other movies, so I was
gay.
Gay, and I think if fans of Stella were to guess one thing that I would put in a film, it would be gay women. So
so I was not expecting this. We actually don't allow gay women in our dark universe.
Yeah, I don't know. We've been receiving some feedback online lately that we're too woke.
Yeah.
And we
The reviews are in.
We were just talking on our break. If you look at our Apple Podcast reviews, the most recent review is someone who calls us a woke cancer, but still gave us 3 stars, and that's a win in my book.
I mean, honestly, maybe you'll come around.
Yeah,
keep listening.
Keep listening.
Keep listening. Thanks for everyone's welcome to listen to the show.
By the time you get through season 2, you're going to be woke. By the time you get through season 3, we'll have force femmed you. And that is the Dark Universe promise.
So the first part of this movie is just really acclimating you to the type of life that Sybil leads.
Yeah.
Which is just constantly being surrounded by people and cameras. Can't get away from anything.
The sort of claustrophobia of Shiva Baby.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it's a claustrophobia of public life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like the movie itself will take place in a fairly claustrophobic space.
Yeah.
But for her, the claustrophobia is not about being in a small room. It's about being surrounded all
Never
the time.
being able to get any time to yourself or
Exactly.
get away from,
So we have her go to this party. Caitlin Dever plays Tish Simon, who is a molecular biologist and Margot's sort of like lead researcher.
Mm-hmm.
And Sybil happens to run into Tish, and Tish has no idea who she is.
Mm-hmm.
And so they immediately have rapport that Sybil never has with anybody.
Yeah.
Because everybody knows who she is.
Mm-hmm.
And over the course of this evening at the party, they get to know each other, are severely attracted to each other, and end up just going into one of the many rooms of this mansion to just, bone.
Mm-hmm.
So most of the people have left the party by the time they're done.
Mm-hmm.
Only, wouldn't you know it, after a bunch of these people leave and there are way fewer guests there, who shows up but Eben Moss-Backrack, who you may know from The Bear.
Yes, and is the Thing, right?
Yeah, the Thing.
Yes. He's giving this film a little zip.
Yes. Eben plays Gordon.
Okay.
Now, Gordon and his team are there to steal Margot's research into this invisibility stuff.
Just like in the original gangster subplot.
Gangster subplot.
Now, other members of Gordon's sort of party are Justice Smith as Luane.
This will be the 3rd time that Justice Smith has been cast on
God
the show.
damn it!
Justice Smith is playing triplets. All these characters are twins.
We can reveal that later. I'm starting to
No,
interrupt.
last time we said a Justice Smith type. Yeah.
So this time in the credits it will say another Justice Smith type.
It's a Justice Smith type. It's
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Stella, please go on.
Okay. Originally, I had him as Zach Cherry from Severance.
I love Zach Cherry.
I do love Zach Cherry, and Zach Cherry is available. Yeah.
Originally, I thought it wouldn't work. Like, he wouldn't work quite so much for the type of character that I had planned, but I'll tell you.
Sure.
I'll tell you about it. And then the 3rd member of their merry band is Katie O'Brien as Luann. We have Luane and Luann, which I plan to make into several jokes later where no one knows whose name is being called. And a couple of other side characters. I did end up putting Zach Cherry in as Lou, who is the event planner for the party. One of those like really perpetually nervous types, and like is not treated well by Margot Gilder at all. And Maud Apatow as Carmen Carter Carson, who is a TikTok influencer attending the party.
So now, Zach Cherry is kind of in the Margaret Hamilton role in a way.
Yes.
And Carmen Carter Carson is sort of is that a Kitty? Was it Kitty Carson? What was her name? Kitty?
Well, I was going to say this is obviously our universe's J. Jonah Jameson.
Yes.
So I'll tell you,
Carmen Kitty Carson.
I'll tell you that like every single character here has that like they're related thematically to what's going on. So to give you a little background here, Gordon is a former military man.
Okay.
And he's looking to flee the country to escape some incredibly large sports gambling debts that he's jacked up.
This is a perfect Evan Moss Backrack character.
I'm like literally like I didn't know what the character was until I put his name down.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I know exactly who this is.
That's the dude who's just like, I ran into him once. I walked past him in Brooklyn Heights, and he looked like he was in the middle of just like the worst day anyone's ever had. And I'm like, perfect.
No, like
that's exactly what you want when you run into Evan Moss Backrack. You want to seem like he's like, God, I just got yelled at by my boss, and now I'm gonna go get dumped by my girlfriend. This is the walk in between those two things.
I needed a heavies team of like sweaty, glowering people. Like people who can hold a lot of like discomfort and pain in their face, but not show the pain, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But
you can tell.
Yes. Justice Smith is Gordon's former squatty. And he was discharged from the army honorably after he received a leg injury. Which means he couldn't go anywhere in the army or the Marines or whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
I don't know, man.
The military.
Yeah. The armed forces. And so he's kind of like adrift right now where he feels like nobody sees him because he's a vet, he's disabled. And it's hard to find a new place in life when you thought like you were building this other thing. He feels like nobody sees him, you know?
I mean, but we take care of our veterans really well in this country.
Oh, yeah,
so,
absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely.
But you could say he's experiencing a little bit of loss of consortium, really.
Yeah. Here you go.
Heart balm for Lawayne. Okay, and then finally, Katie O'Brien. She is a sort of perpetual Gilderon middle manager when she really wants to be something bigger than that. But she's also one of the only people who's figured out that Gilderon is a scam. So
she's also the only person who can deadlift everyone in this cast.
Like she got to know Margot Gilder from the gym because that's a very, very LA thing. Is like running into people at the gym, you know? So essentially these guys raid the party. There's obviously only a couple of people there. And Sybil and Tish are just sort of coming downstairs from their like whirlwind romance and sexual stuff when they are, you know, home invaded. And there's a series of events that leads to them seeing the bad guys, trying to run from them, ending up downstairs in the lab that these guys are supposed to be raiding. And in the chaos, Tish is shot and killed.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Caitlin.
She's dead. Yeah. And in that same...
Wow, fridging a gay woman right out of
I know what I'm doing here, folks. We are burying these gays and also everybody else in this movie.
That's the thing about the Dark Universe is we bury our gays, but we bury everyone.
Bury them all.
In our universe, not only does everyone die, everyone goes to hell.
Yes.
So
that's equality. Yeah.
Fuck them.
So essentially what happens here is Tish is shot. Sybil is in like reacting to Tish being shot and killed, is also shot, but is knocked into whatever chemical or, you know, technological stuff. And lo and behold, she screams in agony and disappears. And everyone else is just sort of like, huh, that's weird. However, the lab's automated security system quarantines everyone in the basement. So you have all these different people, the bad guys, the hostages, and people who are just guests, who are now stuck in there until they can figure out how to like undo the quarantine process, which will be difficult considering that it's all run by a woman who's now dead. However, they have another problem now because Sybil is not dead, and she is the angriest she's ever been in her life.
Sure.
So what I'm looking at is basically an in version of the home invasion genre, which is something I love when they do. Like I liked Don't Breathe, right until the third act.
Yeah.
Where some gross shit occurs. Yeah, not a fan. I love Your Next, which
Next is great.
which I talked about, and that was a huge inspiration here. But I also think like there's something about creating your own monster that I feel works really well in horror. And the big twist of the movie, which probably won't be a big twist if you've seen movies like this before, is that this was all a setup by Margot and Gilderon to stage all this stuff being stolen so that she could escape accountability from investors, government types, et cetera. And so she paid off all these guys to do this. And instead, Sybil hunts them down one by one, and they try to figure out how do we save ourselves from someone we can't even see. So I was thinking, horror gimmicks like, a night vision camera, infrared sprinklers, etc.
Going kind of Predator mode.
Exactly. Yeah. Where like I think that there's just something here where it's not the same, but like in my life, there have been times where I really thought I had something that meant a lot to me. Finally, like finally achieved something or like met someone that I thought where I was like, this is it. I finally have it. And then I didn't have it and it got taken away from me. And I know the level of like pain and anger that I felt with that. And I think that if I had the opportunity for the kind of like direct and largely instantaneous revenge for whoever did that to me, I feel like it would be hard for me not to take it.
I like that. Like, her getting to sort of everything that's been pent up her entire life. Sort of, she gets to be in the rage room, right?
Yeah.
It's basically a big rage room.
And there's like a special sick irony that I'm sure is something fun to play with in terms of part of what makes you go mad here is that you have just had something you really want taken from you and another thing that you've always wanted granted to you irrevocably at the exact same time. That's some Harvey Dent shit. And I think that's a really fun thing to be able to explore, especially for a character who I can imagine like we're never going to see her again in the film, right?
So I wanted her to become visible again at the end, just in time for the cops to come.
A little bit of that Your Next actually.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm not sure. Like that's just sort of like the idea I had in my head was like the cops show up and they're like, don't move, we see you, and she's like, fuck.
You can do the Get Out thing of filming both endings, like the really downer ending and then the one where she gets away with it and kind of test the audience on it.
But just thinking about like the having to get through it, as she's gonna have to work through it, and she's gonna have to be either you have the two ways you can go about it is that she has to be thinking it out loud and kind of subjecting her victims to her working through it, or the more challenging angle of having to convey this entire character arc basically without her,
right? And
just reflected in the way that the other characters are responding to it, and like allowing each of them to represent a different chunk, like as you set up, right? A different chunk of what she's going through, escalating as she goes basically up the list of who's to blame. I think that's really cool. I think I can definitely see your roots in game narrative here, where it feels like you've created a setting where there's finite characters who are all on their own individual stories. You know what I'm talking about, though?
I do. Well, this is kind of what they did with Abigail.
Which
is another very similar thing, and like I'm happy to own up to that, because honestly, Abigail and Your Next are probably like the closest in tone to what I'm going for here. I also thought that I didn't want to have like someone helping her because I want her to be I want her to be alone because that's sort of the whole thrust of it, right? Is that she has no one and she thought she did and now she doesn't. But I thought like maybe as a sort of coping mechanism she's developed, she's like talking to the character she played on the show when she was a kid in, you know, in her head or like, you know, conversing with herself about like, what can we do here? How do we get out of this, et cetera, you know?
Can I throw a really wild idea out there? This might be stupid, but what
there
if
are no stupid ideas?
What if part of her huge loss of identity, like the latest thing in her life, is that they've made an app that is a virtual her for her fans to interact with, and they'll like ask her life questions. She's like, she's their buddy, right? And so it's like one more thing. Not only are they always looking at her, they're looking at her and not even seeing, it's not even literally her, but she's in everyone's pocket. It's an unbelievably, she's a Tamagotchi now. Right? Yeah. And so now when she comes
maybe like she didn't even like agree to it. It's like her representatives like
right, because it's not
just
her,
sold the rights.
It's her character from when she was a kid.
And the voice is AI generated from the recordings they have of her, the like, and like she didn't have any say in it, like, you know.
And so now what she gets to interact with is this AI of her cute younger self who's just there to encourage you, right? she's just there to tell you you're doing great.
I like this.
Thank you.
Well,
I like this.
Here's my pitch. Because I want to find a way while they're in this sort of locked room thing to also tie it a little more directly to her fame.
Yes.
And I'm wondering if, so she gets shot and goes into the invisibility thing. I want everyone to think that she's dead, essentially.
Yeah.
Right? And maybe there's like someone in there, maybe like with the gangsters or something, they're talking, they have a team on the outside and they're trying to figure out who is in here, who had access to the invisibility, like who are we dealing with? And even though she's one of the most famous people in the world, like maybe they're like scanning fingerprints and sending it, but she doesn't have a criminal record. So like, we don't know who this is. She's a ghost. Like this is just, this could be nobody. This is just like nobody knows who she is. And then what our ending is she comes out. And maybe there's almost something similar to the alcohol in the original thing where she actually finds a way at the end where she can kind of turn invisible and visible, maybe a little more at will. And she comes out and the world thinks she's dead. And so she realizes she has this opportunity and all the cops show up and she just turns invisible and walks through them. And like the last shot is like a cop in his car, like talking to the AI of her
as she
walks past and goes and starts a new life, like as an anonymous person, you know, like
good for her.
That's her happy ending is like the world thinks she's dead and now she gets to start over, you know, while she's now like one of the most famous, you know, she died in this crazy thing. Like she's somehow more famous than ever, but she gets to live more anonymously.
Yeah. You know? And like I want to kind of also address in it somehow, like these guys did not go there with the intention to kill or hurt anyone. That I think that it was probably largely an accident that that Tish even got shot. Like that they weren't supposed to be there. They were supposed to have left already. The whole plan was like, you have this specific set of witnesses that will kind of toe the company line and say, this is what happened. Yeah. You know, and like these guys, like they had the guns to just scare the witnesses essentially, you know? And I think like that way you can have Sybil working through like, are they to blame? Maybe not, but is it their fault? Yeah.
Yeah. And at the moment, I don't give a shit.
Exactly. Like, and I think like, I don't know. There's like people talk about like snapping, right? And I don't think that snapping really works the way people think it does. I think snapping is something that kind of like accumulates over time. Yeah. Where this rage and anger and pain within you, it builds up and it doesn't usually bubble over. A lot of people have a sort of like baseline, not quite at the brim, but close to it level of rage within them all the time, you know? And to I know because I have felt that way before.
Yeah.
You know, and like a lot of kind of what went on the paper for this was like, if I could hurt the people who hurt me, wouldn't that rule? And the answer is, I mean, probably not.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, why wouldn't you?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like when you are afforded an ability to, with zero consequences, hurt those who hurt you in some way.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like a lot of people would take it. And I don't know that I would, but I'm making a face right now at Dalton. Viewers can't see the face that I'm making, but I'm making it. And I think that also like her being invisible just means that there's a lot of really great opportunities for like kills and like, you know, accidents and like things that people wouldn't necessarily expect, right?
Yeah.
Like I think like part of like horror and comedy, I think are kind of both sides of the same coin, where you want to play with people's expectations as to what is going to happen next, you know? And sometimes that's about timing. Sometimes that's about like character depth and, you know, interactions and stuff like that. But like, I have a horror movie concept that I call economy of gimmick.
Mm-hmm.
Which is, I want a horror movie with like a creature or gimmick to only last as long as it takes for me to no longer be surprised by what that gimmick has to offer.
Yeah.
So say A Quiet Place, which, reflecting on it, I'm not sure is as good as I thought it was initially, but they let you believe that you know everything about these creatures by this point, and then one of them can fucking swim.
Yeah.
And that is the final gimmick that they lay right on you.
I think Companion does that really well too.
Totally.
Of like setting up all these rules where you don't know how they're going to come into play, and then each one sort of like all the way to, well, I'm not going to spoil it for Dylan or that, but like I think at the end when you sort of think things are over and then you realize how they're not, you know, it's like that sort of like finding new ways to keep surprising you with the original premise is really key.
Yeah.
Related to that, I just had like a whole scene pop into my head, fully
I'm ready.
formed, which is I keep thinking about the connections between how we can tie together her life in the spotlight with now this sort of locked room kind of thing. And I think it would be here's my idea, which is that in that first act, when it's all claustrophobia, the one thing she gets away with is she dresses up like her assistant in like a hoodie and stuff, and is able to like sneak past the paparazzi and go get a coffee by herself. And it's the only moment we see her get to herself by sort of being incognito and disguised as her assistant. Fast forward to our third act, where all the baddies are dead except, let's say, our CEO,
Margot,
our Lisa Gilroy, who is desperate now because she's not only in deep shit from before, but now she's got all these bodies at her feet.
But very, very, very importantly, she has also discovered completely by accident that this shit actually works.
Yes. Right. So the stakes are different for her now.
Yes.
Now she has to try and save the invention.
Yes.
And so she gets in the machine and she turns herself invisible. And at this point, she's found, because she invented this machine, she has a way of seeing where what's our main character's name? Sybil. Where Sybil is.
Invisible.
So she turns herself invisible, and now she thinks she has the upper hand. I can see where she is, but she can't see where I am. And we get this sort of invisible person stalking invisible person sequence. And what Sybil ends up doing is she takes Katie O'Brien's clothes and puts them on, and maybe there is like a hoodie element or something, and just walks right in front of Lisa Gilroy. But from like the back or whatever, she just looks visible, and she looks like Katie O'Brien. And she's like, "Oh, there you are. I've been looking everywhere for you. Like, we have to catch this person." She turns around, shoots her, because now she knows exactly where she is. And she says something like, you may be invisible, but I know how to blend in. You know, like, this is something that she is like, she thinks she has the upper hand, but this is someone who is used to constantly being looked at and found, and no matter where she is. And she uses this skill she has of like blending in as someone unexpected and using it to turn the tables on the bad guy.
I think there's maybe an even more poignant twist on this idea, which is that we can play with how, like, Sybil's rich and famous, super visible, right?
Yeah.
And then when you have this assistant class who is always around, by required to always be around, but be seen and not heard or not even seen, right? So there's
to be there,
yeah,
but to not be seen.
Yeah.
So I think there's an interesting thing where when Sybil could disguise herself as the assistant and in some ways be invisible.
Yeah, be more invisible.
And that would be
ways,
sort of... I also love the idea of, even if two of them can't see each other at all, the idea of a scene where we keep sort of swapping between the point of view of each invisible person trying to read the signs of the other invisible person's movement.
Yeah.
And neither really knowing how close they are, but like watching two different monster visions going at each other, but like having to do it in like this sort of forensic way.
Yeah, yeah.
Like detective mode shit,
Yeah.
right? I think that's really fun. As always, man, I looked at that movie. I think it would be pretty cool. It's pretty cool to see this movie.
Yeah. Let's make it.
I had some thoughts. I had a thought about, because I don't think it's necessary to get this too mired in Dark Universe lore. However, we do always like to find ways for it to fit in and where.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
I think this takes place during Phase 3, after the book and people know about the Invisible Man. Because now there's a Dr. Jack Griffin, our Invisible Man. He was a food chemist who made this by accident and couldn't reproduce it or fix it, right?
Yeah.
And so now he's a celebrity chef. This point in the timeline. He has obviously been approached by DARPA or whatever, being like, we need this technology. And he's like, can't help you.
Yes. I wish I knew.
Sorry, you know.
I was thinking about this because I was like, what if Gilderon had bought the company that made Monocaine?
Oh yeah, they bought his food company. Yeah, hoping to like find something in the research.
Like,
stuff.
nope,
Yeah.
it was a complete fuck up. But so now there's I think now there's an arms race to try and reproduce technology for industrial and military purposes.
Hell yeah.
And so Margot's company is at the forefront of it because she bought Monocaine, the company from Monocaine. She's the presumptive front runner, but she doesn't have it.
Yeah.
Except, just like in the first time, happy accident. Whoops, here it is.
Yeah, like the way, like I figured like we would probably have some way of like activating, deactivating, or like prolonging it. I was thinking like either it's alcohol, like in this, or you have to like apply an electrical charge to yourself in order to keep it going, which could result in some like really funny comedy bits too. You know, just something where she has to worry about her own safety too. You know,
it could be because it started out being a food chemistry thing. It's like sugar or something, and she's like raiding the kitchen trying to like find some, you know, like something a little funny that we could play into.
Diabetes.
Well, maybe like, what if she's also like, she has to generally like, she has some overbearing nutritionist or something? It's one of the celebrity things where she has to be, her diet's really strict and she doesn't usually, but she loves sweet food. And right now it's like another one of those weird wish fulfillment things mixed into this, being like, oh, fucking yes. Now
I haven't had whatever I want.
I haven't had a Skittle in 20 years.
And now they're my spinach.
Yes.
You know, my Popeye spinach. Yes. I think also, especially if we have the bad guy turn invisible at the end, if we wanted to be kind of cheesy franchisey with it, at the very end, you know, she turns herself invisible, she walks through the cops or whatever, and then we linger on the shot and you see like some branches rustle, and it's like, is it the wind or is Lisa Gilroy alive and invisible? Will this continue? And the Invisible Woman too? It depends on the box office return.
Yeah.
And they won't be high because it stars a woman.
That's right. But you know what? In our dark universe, we've sold a lot bigger blockbusters.
We have our blockbuster lesbian musical romantic horror comedy. So.
And that got a sequel.
It did.
Your Carmilla trilogy.
Our Carmilla trilogy.
Because we have
the Carmillagy.
The Carmillagy. So, yeah, I love this pitch, Stella.
Yeah,
I think it's really fun.
There's a lot of fun stuff to do with it. And yeah, I think making like that sort of locked room, like you were saying, like Abigail, you're next kind of thing, but sort of placing it in the context of fame and the world outside. I think having a little window into how like, maybe this is like national news. Like they can't get in from the outside either. Because it's like so locked down, and they're like crisis at
party guests. Party guests include Sybil Evans,
and we're getting reports that Sybil Evans has been killed. Like tying it to her fame on the outside while we play out this claustrophobic inside thing is a really cool twist on that.
Oh my God, when she's walking through, she's not walking just through cops. There's already fans who are like doing a vigil outside the building.
They've got candles
who would do
stuff.
Anything to be close to her, but who are being so gross right now.
And
she can just walk right past them.
They're all holding up the app with her on it.
Jesus
like lighters at a concert.
They've dressed their Sybil app in like black veils and stuff.
So it's like she's
they're using
herself.
her own likeness to play dress up at her funeral.
Yeah.
All of the like AI Sybil apps are singing "Good Riddance" by Green Day.
Oh my God.
Holy God.
We should establish that there's a feature that if your other Sybil's are near each other, they can harmonize with each other.
They sync up.
Yeah.
Like girls do.
Exactly.
The paid tier of the Sybil app tells you when she's on her period.
Guess what? I'm ovulating.
That's the hacked version. That's the one that all the countdown clock website guys, they've hacked it to tell you that part. Yeah.
Yeah,
all right, cut the check.
With this mod, you can see Sybil's feet.
Just like I had a vision of like a single scene of her walking down a really like sort of industrial lab looking hallway, and she is invisible, but she's like covered in blood.
Yeah.
Like holding up some sort of improvised weapon. And like, I thought I need to see Rachel Sennett like that.
And the high-tech lab aspect gives you so much to play with in terms of the sort of locked room thing.
Exactly.
Like, there's a lot of, from standard like mansion stuff to, it's like a Resident Evil game, right?
That's like I was just about to say.
It's the mansion up top and then all the labs down. And like as the movie goes, you descend farther down.
But it's just like a museum of inventions that only halfway work. Like that would be, I think, a really fun running gag would be that rather than just running into this arsenal of all these cool like military contract inventions, like all of them works just kind of wrong.
And we could do a bit in a callback to the original where Eben Moss-Bacharach talks really high all of a sudden because an invention doesn't work.
We didn't even talk about this.
We didn't even mention that. Yeah, there's a bit where if you go through the invisibility machine, and what is it? If you're like not naked or something, I don't know.
If you don't have the
formula, then
it just makes your voice high.
Yeah, and so Foghorn.
Oh no, I would hate it if that happened.
That's another marketable part of this. Yeah, they're gonna they can sell different parts of it.
Yeah, like the whole idea of like a bunch of like scam tech that doesn't work is like really good.
Yeah,
like imagine like one of them picks up prototype super thin bulletproof armor that does not work at all.
Immediately gets shot and killed. Yeah. Maybe not even by Sybil, but just trying to test it out. Yeah, like
it's like, all right, come on, check it out.
I put a finger gun to your head. Yeah, all the it's like Sybil doesn't even kill anyone. Everyone just dies accidentally. No, we have to let Sybil kill some people. This has to be a good for her movie.
Yeah. No, like that is absolutely the genre here, where I'm like, she needs to kill the people most directly responsible, which means Lisa, whoever shot them or whoever shot Tish.
Yeah.
And but everybody else, I mean, you like imagine you can't see the thing that's hunting you. Like you're going to have a bunch of people shooting fucking blindly into rooms, down halls, bullets ricocheting off of stuff.
Yeah.
Like you're going to be hiding from someone who's not even there. You know, it's just there's a lot of opportunity for like really goofy, gory shit to happen. And which is like really the vibe.
Well, it kind of reminds me almost of the of Kong Skull Island, of like militarization in an environment they're completely not prepared for, and like how all of these like highly trained experts end up just like looking like buffoons.
Oh yeah,
you know, and causing extreme violence often to each other, you know, because they have no idea what they're dealing with in a fun way. Well, I think that's an awesome pitch.
Like
I
solid
think
pitch, right?
I think we can make that canon.
Yeah,
it
well
does
done.
not conflict with any canon. And now we have an invisible woman out
Now we
there
do,
that we
yeah.
can integrate into future pitches if we wanted to.
Who's just so hot, by the way.
Yes. So hot when she's, well, you know what?
The three of us would all like to say a respectful "What's up?"
Yes, respectful stuff. And you
Hope you're well.
you don't even need to be visible to us because we think you're beautiful on the inside. So,
And as we've established, apparently, invisible works for me.
yeah. Dylan, did this pitch make you horny?
Not really.
It made me horny, so we're going to call it a win.
It made me horny to see a new film.
Well, I didn't even get to talk about any of the cool sex scenes, but I guess that's fine.
Well, that'll be for the Patreon. On the Patreon, we will do a bonus episode that goes into explicit detail on the sex scenes.
Okay, then Sybil's on top. And
Wait, no, now we do the montage from the D&D episode of Community where we're like Annie is just going through the play-by-play of the sex, and like Troy is just taking notes in the background.
I will say that in The Invisible Man's Revenge, I did beat you to the invisible sex scene already. We did have a sex scene between two invisible people in The Invisible Man's Revenge, but we'll have more invisible sex shenanigans in this one. Thank you, Stella. Thank you for your contribution to the Dark Universe. Before we sign off, is there anything you would like to plug or anything you would like to say to our audience, or where to find you on the internet?
You can find me on Blue Sky, posting just all the time. My handle is at antlervel.vet. That's antlervel.vet. Like
adorable pictures of Miga.
That's true. I don't really have any games for you to play right now, but keep an eye on my Blue Sky, and maybe there will be something coming out soon.
Really?
That's exciting.
Okay. Future projects.
But thank you guys so much for having me on for this. And this was like honestly a really fun exercise. And also, I kind of want this movie.
That's the curse of the show.
The curse of the show.
Well,
yeah.
we were really pleased to have you on the show. Thank you so much.
You
for
need to
joining
make
us.
one of these Invisible Man posters, but with Rachel Sennett on it now.
You got it.
We'll put them next to each other in the studio. Thank you for coming on. In 2 weeks, I will be pitching my final solo pitch of the Death's Door saga.
Wow, we're really there, aren't we?
We're really there.
We each have only one solo pitch left in this whole saga.
You guys are fucking cruising, man.
Yes.
This is canon pitch number 28.
Yes, I will be pitching The Exorcist. And friends, it's going to be fucked up. It will not be existentially scary in ways that maybe Night of the Living Dead and Old Dark House were, but it's going to be gross. If you have a weak stomach, do not listen after a meal. But we will be back in 2 weeks for The Exorcist. And then 2 weeks after that, we will have our next guest, Danielle Radford from Titan
so
Fights.
excited to have
kidding?
right away.
Amazing.
We had Lindsay Kelk on the show as the previous guest. And now Danielle Radford's going to join us. And she selected
the Waterworld Stunt Show.
Not the movie
Not the
Waterworld,
film.
but the Waterworld Stunt Show.
At Universal Studios Hollywood.
We will find a way to make this Dark Universe compatible.
We don't know what that means.
I am so excited to find out. So while we've got you, we just want to give a quick thank you to the patrons who make this all possible. Thank you so much to our executive producers. These are patrons who pledge to our Patreon at the $15 a month level and buy themselves a little shout out here on the show. Brian Egan, Brent Dreyer, Callie Castle, Mar Bendlar, Matt Thackeray, and Soonmot. And a big round of applause to our studio executives, These are $25 a month patrons.
High rollers.
Yes, who, in addition to a shout out, get to pick one of the movies that we have to pitch a remake for in the Studio Mandates segment of our bonus pod. This is Alyssa, Beerus, B, Bill French, Joseph Angel, Jonathan Morgantini, Joe Valiant, Cadel, Moose, and Tom Webster. Thank you all so much. And thank you to everybody, patron or not. We're so happy to be doing this for you. It's been a really fantastic time.
And next week on the bonus pod, we will be doing a studio mandate for Carnival of Souls.
That's right.
Which is one of my favorite horror movies. So
I still have your Blu-ray of it. I will watch it and give it back to you.
It.
Okay. Oh, did you get the 4K?
No.
Okay, you can keep it until you watch it.
Yes,
okay.
Yes.
All right.
Not keep it permanently.
I think that was getting some more of your hand-me-downs.
Thank you for listening. We will see you in 2 weeks. And until next time,
stay afraid of the dark universe.
And may all your wives be visible.
Amen.